나서 다 그냥 number 상황 생긴데.
Can you all hear me?
다 공도 다 남자 리제베 나랑로네 다 리제 구바디 말베.
So we were speaking about the ninth of the good deeds from the autobiographical versus good deeds, the rousing bodhicitta. And so we've completed that. And so to elaborate on that topic of rousing bodhicitta, I would like to speak a little bit about the topic of meat. So in general, yesterday when I was speaking about the topic of eating meat, because of the amount of time, I was not able to say a whole lot about the topic of how eating meat causes environmental destruction. But I think that there are some aspects of this that are very important for us to understand. So I thought I would speak next about some situations that I didn't have time to speak about yesterday. Generally, the animal husbandry and animal agriculture, animal husbandry and livestock has a great detrimental effect on the land and water and the environment and the earth, as I discussed yesterday. So today I would like to speak about the oceans. So every year, we catch between 90 and 100 million tons of fish from the oceans. So a ton is 1,000 kilos. And so if you have between 90 and 100 million of these tons, that amount of fish is what we take out of the oceans. And within those 90 to 100 million tons of fish, mostly, you can't really count it 100%, but if you roughly estimate it, this probably includes 2.7 trillion living animals. And this is just a coarse estimate. So at this point, one thing that's important to understand, in our conjurer, in the conjurer and the tenjurer, we talk about 60 different types of 60 numbers out to 60 decimal places. And so, but it's not necessary to know all of these, but it's important to know the first. So there's the ones, the tens, the hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, right? So 100,000 is what we call lakh in Hindi. And we get to a lakh. Sometimes some people count the different words for a million, 1,000, 10 millions, and sometimes they get a little bit reversed. But we're going to take the word sai as meaning million. So after 100,000, we have a million. Then we have a 10 million. Then we have 100,000. So we have 10 million, telling millions make 10 million, 10 millions makes 100 million, and so forth. And we go so forth. And so basically, so then we get to the figure of a billion. And we have a 10 billions. So when we have 1,000 billions is a trillion. But in and so we have 1 trillion. So then we have two trillion. Then after the 10, so we have many different words for these numbers. But I think it's probably one of the great terbum in the Tibetan. It's very complicated in the Tibetan words. But in any case, if we say it in English, 2.7 trillion living creatures So this is 2 big terbum and 2 small terbum and 7 small terbum in Tibetan. In any case, however you count them, the main thing is that it's like such an incredibly huge number of animals are caught from the oceans every year. And what we say is when the estimate, we're taking so many fish from the ocean that by the year of 2048, there's the danger that we will have no fish left to catch in the oceans. This is their estimate. And when all of the oceans there'll be no more fish left to catch. They'll be empty of fish. There's this danger that this will happen. When you're fishing, if you're catching a pound of fish for every, if you're bringing a pound worth of fish, at the same time you're catching 5 fish, you're also catching many other fish. You're catching 5 pounds of other marine species are also caught with that pound of fish. Now, the one that are caught by the side, you've got 1 pound that you're going to catch, but together you've got 5 pounds that you've got. There's other living sentient beings are taken, and the ones who don't need are just thrown out carelessly. And when they're thrown out, when they're caught, if they're wounded, later when they're just thrown without any care, and most of them die at that time. And because of that, every year in the 40% of the fish caught in the oceans are just wasted. They're not needed. They're thrown out. They don't care what happens and throw them out. If you think about it in terms of kilos, probably 28 billion kilos of fish are just thrown out. This is a really scary figure. And this is the living fish. That's only fish. There are lots of shrimp and other types of seafood that are not counted. That's only fish. It's really difficult to calculate the amount of the other sentient beings. Now, I'd like to speak about forests. So forests, when we talk about animal agriculture or animal husbandry, if we talk about in Tibetan, it's livestock protection. Because of livestock protection, the effect that it has on the forest is that the largest forest in the largest forest in the world is the Amazon. The Amazon it's like around 90% of it, because of livestock production, like over 90% of the Amazon rainforest has been destroyed. So in every second, not a minute, but a second, every tick on the watch, in every second, between an acre and 2 acres of forest is destroyed and converted into grazing land. And what they're doing is they have to raise animals. In order to raise the cattle, you need to give them crops, and so you need to plant the crops. And so for that reason, they destroy a whole lot of forest area. In every second, like an acre or 2 of forest is just converted into land. And so the main cause of the destruction of the world's forest is livestock. Is the livestock, and we have livestock production here, or when we've got animal husbandry. That's what we mean. And also the grain production for animal feed. So this is the primary cause of the destruction of the world's forests. Because of the destruction of the forests, within the forest there are different plants species of plants that live in the forest, and many different species of animals and insects that live in the forest, and many of them go extinct every day. If you think about the species of plants, animals, and insects that go extinct, There are 137 different species go extinct. This is the extinction of species. 137 go extinct every day. If we think about it, Tibetans, it's like, if we think about it in terms of Tibetans, it's like the entire Tibetan people just dying. It's not like one Tibetan person, it's like the entire Tibetan people dying. So basically, until these days, because of livestock production, 136 million acres of the world's forests have been destroyed. 136 million acres of forest have just been destroyed. And for that reason, we think about it from many different aspects of environmental, livestock production and animal husbandry is really something that we have to think about. When I talk about livestock production, in some of it, in the Tibetan and the Himalayan region, there's the traditional ways of raising animals. And that's of course taking of animals, but when I'm talking about animal husbandry here, that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm speaking about today's problems, it's basically talking about the business of animal husbandry. Some people think about, and some people might think I'm speaking about the nomad lifestyle of raising animals in Tibet. That's not what I'm speaking about. What I'm speaking about now is the business of animal husbandry and alcohol and agriculture. In the traditional ways of raising animals in Tibet and the Himalayas is, if we compare that to the current methods of raising animals and the business of animal agriculture, I think for Tibet, the animals are they're really well off. When you look at them, think about the livestock in Tibet, and I think it's like they've arrived in Sukhavati, like they've been reborn in hills, and it's going to be reborn in heaven. So I think it's less harm to the animals. But if you look at the current factory farming, it's like if I'm a nomad, right? So if we think about it, we're doing it for our own family. It's not like we're doing livestock production to sell the meat to a lot of different people. So this is a very different. So for us, we would just raise enough meat for our family, in accord with the amount that we need for our own lives. And so you don't need a whole lot. So for one day, for example, if you slaughter one yak, it'll probably last for the entire year. Now, when you're doing it talking about doing agricultural production, livestock production, you're doing it for many other people, for hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And so if you don't have a large people, you have to do it as a business. I think, how can you reduce expenses and you get more meat and get larger quantities? And so if you do what you can to get better meat. And so you think about different methods and ways to improve the production. And it's much, much more dangerous and destructive than the traditional ways of agriculture. And so this is something that we must understand. So these days in the world, we have talked about vegetarianism, right? It's not eating meat, vegetarianism. And so we have the vegetarianism. And then we also have vegans these days. Vegan means someone who doesn't eat dairy products, milk, butter, or so forth. They're based on someone who does not anything that is produced from an animal. If it's like me, it would be difficult for someone like me to be vegan who didn't eat any. If you can't have yogurt, you can't have eggs, you can't have milk. It's very difficult. So many of them don't even have honey. But in these days, there are many people who are vegans. Now, I don't know what we would call a vegan we say independent. We wouldn't call them vegetarian because vegetarians eat milk and dairy products. But that's what we'd say for vegan. So I'm just going to use the English word vegan. So if you think about in terms of someone who's vegan, somebody who's a vegetarian, and within that there's a vegan, someone who doesn't drink milk, who doesn't have yogurt, who does not eat anything that is produced by from an animal, that such a person, how much benefit that has is so every day for the entire, it'll save 5,000 liters of world throughout the entire world because of being a vegan. In every day that it reduces the world water usage by 5,000 liters. And reduces the usage of grains by 20 kilos. And also in terms of the forest land, he'd have and that such a person will protect 30 square feet of forest land by not eating meat and being vegetarian, not eating meat and probably also save so among the greenhouse gases of the world, one of these is carbon dioxide, and this is one of the very harmful for causing global warming. So the vegan will be able to decrease the amount of carbon emissions by 9 kilos every day, and will be able to protect the life of one animal. And this is every day. Because of that person being vegan every day, in particular because of being vegan every day, the benefit they bring or the reduction in harm is that great. When we think about this, we think about water. When you open the tap and we think about reducing water by being careful about the water temps and trying to reduce our garbage jars. And we do a lot of different things to do this. And they definitely help. But if we are vegan, there is a much more beneficial, has a greater effect on the world, a more benefit to the world, and would be able to give a much greater benefit to the world. And so, for that reason, and so because of the choices and for what to do and what to not to do that a single person make definitely have a result in terms of what happens in the world. They have a great connection to what happens in the world, and that's definite. Likewise, in our traditionally, whether we're in abroad and in many countries, say that if we eat meat, that it's good for our health. We say it's beneficial for our health. Our body will be strong. Particularly if it's strong, if you eat meat, then you'll be strong physically. You won't be weak. You'll be very strong physically. This is something that we say, right? Especially this is said quite a bit abroad. But however, but many scientists and many medical experts have done research and there are many athletes also, people who especially train themselves in athletic skills. And they've investigated this to find out if this is in fact the case or not. And they say that this, what we were saying before, that if you eat meat, if you don't eat meat, you'll be weak, and if you eat meat, you'll be physically strong. And so saying that is actually not the case, in fact. And so that's what they've been able to determine. For an example, in 2018, there was a documentary film that was called The Game Changers. The name of this movie is called The Game Changers, and what it says in this documentary is it's primarily speaking about veterinarianism, and it's improving veterinarianism. So talking about how does vegetarian affect your health. So many people take a lot of interest in this and have a lot of questions about it. So this is an introduction to that. What they say in this documentary is that one of the results of the research done by all the medical experts and scientists is that because of eating food produced by livestock production, if we eat the foods that are produced by livestock production, then what happens to us is we have more inflammatory diseases, heart disease, and cancers, and other messages. So it's a condition that causes that, increases the risk. If you eat vegetarian, it is the opposite of that. You have less risk of inflammatory disease or less risk of heart disease and cancer. So it reduces the risk, particularly if you are vegetarian. It increases the function or the power of the brains, and so they explain that that can increase your brain power. What it says in this documentary is that in the ancient Rome, so Rome was a very influential very influential situation in the ancient world, and there are many warriors and many gladiators, very strong people, and most of them were vegetarian. They determined, so they ate vegetarian food, and because of their vegetarian diet, they became very strong and like become as and they were able to be unbeatable by others. So they've recognized it. Likewise, if we actually see these days, we have like strong animals such as oxen or gorillas. Like the big gorillas, not monkeys, but the strong gorillas, they're vegetarian. The really strong oxen are vegetarian. We say the strong people are as strong as an ox, right? As strong as an ox. Well, but the ox doesn't eat meat, right? Oxen don't eat meat. Oxen and gorillas, even though they're all of there's a protein that they need. We call it it's called protein. The English word, I've forgotten what we say it called in English. His own saying. And so they get all of their protein from plant sources. So they can get all of the nutrition that they need for their body from the plant sources. So they get it all from vegetable sources, and because they have nutritious food, they're able to be strong. If we think about it in terms of people, what it shows in this documentary film, there are some very famous athletes and champions. One named Scott Jurek, and he's an ultra marathoner. His name is Scott Jurek. What he says is that, because I'm vegetarian, and that his wins were really directly related to his vegetarianism. It's not he. Likewise, between 1984 and 1996, there was an athlete, an American athlete, who won 9 Olympic gold medals through sprinting and jumping. So basically in track and field. So so Carl Lewis was a very well-known athlete of that time. He was also vegetarian. And what he says, he was able to he was someone who was able to run 100 meters. He was the first person to break the 10-second barrier for running 100 meters. He has a really strong body, and he was vegetarian. He said, likewise, there was an American athlete named Kendrick James Ferris, and he was also a weightlifter. He was able to lift a lot of strong weight. So he's a weightlifter, and he was also vegetarian. And so for these reasons, and so I think if we go outside, it's not like, we say running a little bit outside. It's like their actual job was to play sports, and they're professional athletes. And they did this because of eating vegetarianism food. The blood circulation. When you eat meat, then there's a lot of meat, and it affects your circulation. Because of being vegetarianism, there's less fat in your food and in your blood vessels, and so that helps your blood circulation and gives you more energy and more strength in your body. And because of this, so if we say that eating meat is what makes people strong, then that's wrong. If you don't eat meat, that you're won't have any strength, and you're going to be weak, and that you're going to be unhealthy. That is not necessarily the main reason that people say this is that you've got many agricultural industries that sell meat, and the business people relate to them, and they, in order to fool us and deceive us, they make advertisements, and they try to brainwash. You think that it's not okay not to eat if you have to eat meat in order to be strong, and so they put that idea in our heads, and they first of all, we don't even think about, they kind of infect us with that. And they put these impressions in ourselves, and they intentionally fool us by doing this. And so for that reason, for us to have a strong body, if we say that you have to have meat in order to be strong and to be healthy, is something actually we shouldn't just follow what someone else is saying to fool us. Instead, we have to examine it for ourselves and think very, very carefully. And the reason is that you see a whole lot of different advertisements these days. Every day there's someone saying, you absolutely must have this. You must have this. If you don't have this, then you aren't going to be a whole person. You're only going to be a half a person. If you have a motorcycle, you have to. If you ride this bike, you're going to be a really impressive person. Everyone's going to look at you, and look at you with wide eyes. That's the advertisements. We see this, right? You can have the motorcycles flying through the sky, and we look at things that's really incredible to see. And I think I got to go buy a motorcycle. We have that feeling, right? And the reason why they do this is that, first of all, when we first see the advertisement, we think it's like ridiculous. We think it's fake. We think, but you see it again, and we think, that's kind of nice. Yeah, that's so nice. We think that, right? And then we get to the point you start thinking, oh, I got to buy one. And so that's their plan. Like the Buddha taught Dharma after seeing the needs and abilities of different centuries, and what these business people are doing is they're examining what is it that people like and what do they want, and then they think about how can we fool us and brainwash us, and they think of things and they make plans. If we say this will be good, if we use this word, it'll help. If we show this sort of an image, it'll be good. And they make these plans, and then they fool us. And so if we don't actually use our brains, and it's just whenever we open a website, we're going to be fooled. Whenever we look at a film or look at a website, we're going to be fooled. When we look at the news, we're going to be fooled. If we're going to buy food, we get fooled. So this happens all the time. We need to be clever about this and not let ourselves get sucked into it, and to pull ourselves back from it and think for ourselves carefully. This is really important. Because we have a brain because of our father and our mother, right? So if we don't use that brain that we have, then that's our own fault. It's not someone else who's going to be affected by that. And so this is another thing we need to really think about. However, as I said before, when you talk about giving up meat, many people think that if I can't give up meat, so there's no way we can give up, we think. And people are really worried about it. They have difficulty with it. But I think there's no no need to worry like that. For example, when I say that it's important to eat, not to eat meat, you might be thinking, it's like, I can't give up meat, and His Holiness is saying to somebody say that. And I said, wouldn't be, I can't give it up, but if if I don't give it up, then he's going to be offended. Then that's not the case. I'm not going to. It's like for the people around me, there are a lot of people who eat meat, and I don't make it hard to them. I don't say a lot of things to them. I don't often speak about this. Occasionally, when I'm speaking in public, they probably hear when I speak in public, but otherwise, then I don't specifically say to them, "You guys are horrible people." No, you don't need to worry about that. What I'm saying, I don't think that we need to. First of all, think that we have to give it up entirely, give it up for life. Yes, if you're able to give it up, that's. But if you can't, then that's okay. It's like you don't have to eat meat every day. You can have it one day a day. If you can do something to reduce the amount of meat, then that's fine. That's not so difficult. It's not saying immediately you have to give up meat for the rest of your life. And from the very beginning, giving you a hard time, and if I have to putting you under a lot of pressure, that's not good. Because giving up meat becomes something difficult, and it's not beneficial. So we need to try to do what we can to decrease the amount of meat that we eat. That's what is important. And in particular, these days, many people, especially people in Tibet, Tibetan Lamas say you're not allowed to eat meat. And if you're not able to eat meat, then what are you going to do to get enough nutrition for your body? So what should you eat if you're sick, for example? Many people say this. It's definite that once we become vegetarian, it's really important once you become a vegetarian to pay a lot of attention to the nutrition to make sure you get enough. Of course, in general, we always have to pay attention to it. But actually, it's kind of a strange way of speaking. So normally when we're eating, we don't really worry about whether it's got nutrition or not. We just eat it. We eat whatever we get. But when you say there's no meat, then we say, oh, I'm not going to get enough nutrition. So normally we don't usually think about nutrition, but you say, when you talk about not eating meat, then it's only then you start saying, am I going to get enough nutrition? So if it's that, I'm not certain this is actually saying that you're worried about getting enough nutrition. So, but in any case, whether you're thinking about whether you're going to plan to eat meat or whether you're going to be a vegetarian, you have to pay attention to the nutrition your body is going to get. For example, for myself nowadays, I'm studying this myself, studying about the different nutritional values of foods. I'm learning how to cook. I'm learning how the different types of foods. So if one day I have to go to India, someday I'll gather all the cooks and the food managers, and we'll have a nice discussion. And we can have a competition to see who's got better skills, the cooks or me. There are so many monastics in the monasteries that for this, it's really important that the food that they are served is tasty and nutritious. Just filling your stomach isn't enough. In particular, since you're not eating meat, then in particular, you have to see whether you can have good and nutritious food, and paying attention to this is really important. If you say don't eat meat and not paying attention to food and to taste and nutrition, then that's not difficult. For it's like this. For instance, I had this problem too, because when I stopped eating meat, I thought maybe there's some difference in my food. But I don't think it had a big effect. It's been 10 years now. In any case, so giving up meat and being a vegetarianism, It's not something we need to make something that's giving us a hard time, making things difficult and complicated for ourselves. And it's not something that we need to debate about. It's actually really easy, as I said the other day. There's no need to make it into something complicated. You don't need to make a lot of scriptures and logic and stuff with it and talk about it. So then they're just going to make it into something difficult. We're making something easy into something difficult. And then once we've done that, if we say, if you say that, it's not okay. If you say that, it's not okay. And it's got very strange. There's no point to that. So this is something that's important to keep in mind. So in brief, when you talk about giving up meat and eating and being vegetarianism, whether you're someone who eats meat or whether you're a vegetarian, there's no need to worry about it. You should just relax. You can think, well, carefully about what you want to do, and then gradually put it into practice. It's not like you have to just immediately decide and make a huge change. In other words, if you think well and take your time, make a good decision, I think you'll see that there are good reasons and needs, necessities to do it. Instead of just saying, "Oh, the guru said this, the scientists say this," then I don't think that it's going to work out so well. I don't know that's going to work out. So please, all of you, keep in mind. So I think that's enough for today. Better to stop here, I think. So now we'll recite the closing prayers.